Very important to recognize things that you can and can't control in the first place.
For me, if you spend all of your time on people around you, or you are who you surround yourself with, and I think we do suffer more in imagination because I think we're, as creatures, have a tendency to think too much.
What's the point of you sitting down and worrying when you know that you're going to eventually go there and fight?
You're not able to control the situation.
Hey people, today's our fourth episode and welcome to Triangle Theory. Today we're going to explore the topic of Stoicism. Rupert and I, we are both avid readers of Stoicism, and we thought it's going to be an amazing time to explore this topic and share a few significant lessons that made our lives insignificantly better.
Yeah, this is not a lesson on ancient Greece, Rome, or Seneca. We can start with Epictetus. The chief task of the philosopher is determine what is up to us and what is not up to us. We don't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Everything was an opportunity to respond with four virtues, the touchstones of goodness. The four virtues included courage, which be bravery, endurance, temperance, our discipline, moderation, just the right amount, justice, so that's being fairness or honest, and wisdom, which is the study. Anything that happens to us was an opportunity to learn these four virtues, and that was the principle, the basis of what Stoicism is. So, focus on what you can control. What does it mean to focus on what you can control?
I guess it's very important to recognize things that you can and can't control in the first place. So, in my eyes, that would be, as an example, you're going on holiday and you're expecting a good weather, sunny, you go by the beach, but then suddenly it starts to rain and it's cold as well, and it's cold, and I'm thinking my old self would probably say, "Oh, like it's so bad, holiday shit. I'm not really enjoying this anymore," just because of the outside. Outside, how would you call it, situations. You just make yourself not feeling well about the situation. Like why would you feel sad because the rain started to because the weather changed? I guess it's very important to see this as an opportunity. Maybe stay at home and read a book or something. But that's a very generic thing. I guess Stoicism is more about how you see the situations in your own life. So say, for example, if maybe your close one, your loved one dies, how you react to that, and this is something that is very natural. We all born and then we all going to die. And I'm not saying you should be cold and not react to that situation, but I guess it's very important to realize that this is just a part of the nature, and all you can do in this specific situation is just control how you're going to react to it. So yeah, just feel the sadness, feel the grief, but that's it. That's all you basically can do.
Yeah, like an emotional response is an emotional response, but you're not able to control the situation, and it's kind of letting go. There's an amazing woman called Mel Robinson, and she has something called the let them theory. The let them theory being that you can't control people as much as we want to, whether that be your children or your siblings or your parents. They might frustrate you and do what they want to do, and it's about sort of going, okay, I'm just focusing on what I can control.
Yeah.
You know, and I think with that you need resilience, and you also need to be able to let it go and know that if you inherently try to control every aspect of your life as well as everyone else, it's really difficult, and you're only adding more problems and more stresses. It's focusing on what you can control. Yes, by all means, if you've got an emotional response to something, whether that be like letting that happen,
Yeah.
but there's no point trying to control the situation or others. I think that's the key to understanding more about yourself and also putting yourself first.
Exactly. I mean, in our lives, we are dealt with a deck of cards that we have to play. So things like we are born in certain family, that there are people who are born in rich families, the people who are born in addict families, and I guess that's the cards they've been dealt. That's the life cards they've been dealt, and everyone is just have to sort their situations in their own ways. Is what Stoicism tries to explain, that if you're born in an addict family, your only reaction is how can I get out? Like your only response to that should be how can I get out of this and how can I make myself better, not to be like my family, not just being a victim about it and just trying to blame other people because you were born in that family. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's about focusing your attention and your resources on what's important, and inherently that is what you can control. Because I think a lot of the time we try and spend a lot of our time on things that we can't, and I think that will only get you further down a path of self-doubt. Because I think when I was just trying to control every aspect of my life, it felt overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think the moment where I was kind of took that response of like, let them, the people in my life control themselves. You know,
Yeah.
it's up to them. I can't make anyone happy.
Yeah.
It's up to them.
That's it.
It gave myself more love for me, in that I was like, okay, if I can spend time on what I control, then I can. It's giving yourself that self-love. And I think it's doing it from a place of that. Yes, it feels right. And the response is like, oh, I got to control everything. You know, even having my dad down here recently, like trying to control him and what he wants and making sure he's okay. And I can't control how he responds to things. And I'm not going to try it. Like, there's no point, because I'm only going to send myself in a spiral. Like, it's
That's it.
up to him. Like, if he wants, yeah, like it. And I try and practice that more, because I'm definitely one of those people that will try and control situations.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like even if I look at my own business and staff, my business being my baby, in that it's something that I can control because I do have control over, but there's some things that I can't. Sometimes it's down to the managers, or I can't control every single taco that goes out. Like, for sure not. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But I try and let it go as well. And that was really hard, because it's like, yeah, let them mess up on an order, because that's how they'll learn.
That's it.
I can only control on the order that I make.
You can't micromanage people.
No, because then that's where it gets constricting, and then you end up looking like the control freak, which you are trying to be. And I think that
Absolutely.
it's also removing yourself from, like, you're not the most important person in everyone's life.
Yeah, and I think the perfect next law would be we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So, what does it mean for you, Rupert, to suffer more in imagination than in reality?
I think we inherently either look too far forward or dwell too far back. We're never actually in what's in front of us right now.
Do you have an example
From
your personal life?
I was always very angry at my past, in that I felt like why I wasn't achieving what I wanted to achieve right now was because of that. And I would blame things on that.
That's another thing. You can't really control your past.
No. And I would spend more time suffering dwelling on the future because my expectation of the future was more than I exceeded. More than I had wanted for myself. And I think that also with problems, if I was faced with an issue, I would immediately think it was far worse than what the issue was. I'm very much that kind of person because in my family, like if there was a problem, the reaction is it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Do you know, like it's
yes.
and like I talk with my mum about this all the time because it was instilled from her mum, which was if there was an issue, I would immediately go to worst case scenario, immediately, like the worst of the worst. And
that's so my mum, man.
I would sit and suffer in that this is going to be the worst thing that's ever going to happen to me. That's it, done. Worst case scenario, planning for worst case scenario. Okay, worst case scenario is definitely going to happen. So I need to have this contingency. And then worst case would never happen. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. But then as well, you start to, if you think about the worst case scenario, you kind of start to prepare yourself for that worst case scenario. So as an example, you think that you're going to get sacked from the job, so you start applying for different jobs, and then it's just like, well, what is the evidence that you're going to get sacked from the job? It's just I guess
or like other examples being that like people can't, I don't know, come to tell the people are so scared to own up to things or take accountability, or because they're always just like, the world's going to end. My world is going to inherently end because I've already planned it in my head. I already know that this is going to be the only case that's going to happen. When actually in reality, it never quite happens like that. And I think we do suffer more in imagination because I think we're, as creatures, have a tendency to think too much.
As well, we just, I guess, as humans,
overthink.
Overthink, and then we are afraid of uncertainty. Like we want to know everything here and now. We don't want any random stuff happening in life. We want to be in control of everything that's happening, but that's not the case. And again, it goes back to the first law that focus on what you can control, what you can't.
Yeah, and like I'd say I'm getting better at it now, but I'd say really in the last, I was a massive overthinker. I would overthink everything. I would overthink everyone's responses. I would overthink text messages that I would send to people. Like if I send a WhatsApp to someone, I'd be like, oh, like, should we go for like a drink or something? Should we go on a date? Like I would overthink and be like, nah, she doesn't want to fucking, or do you know what I mean?
Hey,
like,
I'm the same.
I would overthink everything and I would get it inside my head so much. And I think if you're one of those people that gets inside of those head, it's kind of, and this is something I learned from James, he's kind of like my coach, mentor. He was kind of saying like kicking the worry down the road, as in like don't worry about that problem because the problem hasn't even happened yet.
Yes, that's it. Like
why
you should worry about it? If it's not even here.
Like why are you preparing for a problem that hasn't happened?
Yeah.
Like by all means, when the problem happens, then worry about it then. But the problem hasn't happened, so don't worry about it. And it was that where I was like, so you're telling me it's just a case of just kicking it down? I can't do that. Like that's way too easy to be said than done. But I kept every problem that I had that I was overthinking, worrying on. I was like, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Yeah. Not until I have to.
Yeah.
And it's helped me massively, just kicking it away.
Yeah, I remember I used to be afraid of sending voice notes because I was afraid of what people are gonna think about my voice.
Well, yeah, you know, and I don't like listening back to voice notes anyway. Just like in general, but
you don't like listening to yours.
I'm so bad.
Have you tried to listen to the podcast?
It's really painful for me to listen.
Have you tried to listen to the podcast?
Yeah, like doing those timestamps. There's something I fucking hate about my voice. I absolutely hate the sound of my own voice. Like
I think I got better at listening to my own voice because when I used to work in social media marketing, I used to send video messages to business owners because it's a different way of approaching people. But those first times when I listen, it's like, just like, hey everyone.
But do you think
I'm
that's
not listening to
because
that.
do you think that's because you think people are judging the sound of your voice, or is that just you judging the sound of your
It's
voice?
probably me judging. I don't think everyone, because the way I think about it, yeah, if I would look someone else's voice note, I wouldn't judge them like they just send me a voice
Obviously
note.
not, because it's their voice. You
Yeah.
know what they sound like.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like,
But
oh,
then
you
when
sound like a dick.
but then when I listen to myself, it's like, oh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I sound like that?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
It's and again, that's overthinking. That's kind of living in imagination, not reality. But I think we've always got to remember that you'll never worry about someone else's jewelry more than they will. You'll never worry about someone else's problems more than they will. You'll never worry about someone's job more than they will.
Mm-hmm.
And the same goes for you. Like, no one gives a fuck about you. And I think that's also really important to understand when living more in a reality mindset than imagination, is that you'll always worry about you more than others will. And it's, removing that sense of overthinking in imagination, because the imagination can run wild. You can run however far you want with it.
Yeah,
But the reality is always now.
that's it.
And it's never ends up being, at least in my, when studying that law and living by that law of like, okay, this is in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me get more realistic.
Just one thing as well. I remember when I was in Thailand, I met this guy. His name is Omar. Shout out to Omar if he's watching. Really cool guy. And I remember I was so we were both training in the same gym, and I remember he was preparing for his fight and I was preparing for my fight. We were supposed to fight on different days, and we always, obviously, when you fight, and you always talk like, how do you feel? What do you think about like the guy you're fighting? Just these little things, and I'm never really afraid to tell people that I'm afraid. Like it's just a natural thing, and I just told him like, yeah, man, I'm a bit anxious and I'm a bit worried. And what he said, I think it changed everything so much at the situations at the way I look at the situations. So he said, what's the point of you sitting down and worrying when you know that you're going to eventually go there and fight? He's like, he was sitting, I remember we were in, and it's like, just worry on the day, like chill now, like just eat your food, you're gonna go to sleep, you wake up tomorrow, go training, you're not fine today, you're not fine tomorrow, you're fine in a week's time, so worry then, don't worry now. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, like why I'm putting that extra energy, the negative energy in the first place, while I'm here now with my friends just enjoying food. And that really changed the way I look at the future worries.
And it's hard because I think that there are so many worries that you can worry about, whether it's like financial and family worries or all of these stresses that come in. But I think it's remembering that your mind does have a tendency to run away with itself.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, the reality is now, and the problem are there when you need to face them, not preempting, trying to prevent every problem that comes your way in a week's time or tomorrow or or like however long or whatever. Like you can't prepare for everything all at once all the time. And it's, removing those problems and dealing with them until they get there.
The third law is the obstacle is the way. So what does it mean, the obstacle is the way for you, Rupert?
It's that saying of like you have to lick the frog. I can't remember whether that's...
Eat the frog.
Eat the frog first.
So it talks about when you have a huge to-do list and you just feeling overwhelmed about it. So
it's doing the things...
Just do the hardest thing that you possibly see.
Yeah.
That's how they call eat the frog.
Exactly. And I think where the obstacle is the way is that the challenges that we face are in which the ones that we best benefit from. I think if you're leaning into the things that scare you the most, that's where
the growth comes
from. And I think if you're leaning towards a life in which you want to better, you have to do things in which are obstacles, because I think that that's the way forward, because otherwise you would be doing them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's as simple as that. And I think that where it kind of comes to practicing those virtues, it's being curious and open and using sort of as an opportunity to gain more wisdom, in that we all have to do hard things eventually. Like, and postponing a problem will only extend it. It will never get rid of it. And I learnt that the hard way, because sometimes if you keep extending
What was the hard way?
as in, like, I think just every problem that I had that I would just kind of push off, it either built up and got worse, and my anxiousness grew, because I was like, I keep putting it off and it's still in the back of my mind, it's not going away. But if I just dealt with that problem straight away, it would have made my life easier and wasn't so bad in the first place, and didn't grow into this thing that it didn't need to. So and not all the time it grows into things you don't need to. I think if you extend it for a long enough period of time, it might do. But yeah, it's kind of not being a pussy about it. Do you know what I mean? And just fuck it. This is me. This is all I have. And going in with that mindset, well, I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
It's an obstacle. It's in the way. I need to get up and attack it and deal with it head first. Because for me, that was always a problem. It was like being fearful, being scared of the problems that I had to deal with.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you?
Ooh, I wasn't ready for this. Yeah, it means for me it probably was. I was the obstacle is the way for me means do the thing that you are most afraid of. I remember or do the thing that you don't want to do. So I remember when I found out about David Goggins, he said that growth comes from the things that you hate the most doing. That's the way to say it.
Good enough.
Yeah, good
Hate
enough.
doing the most.
Sorry for my grammar. I'm
Sorry,
not,
English isn't your first
Yeah,
language.
that's okay.
Smash that.
So yeah, and I remember I was watching it, and then at that time I was singing as well, and I was like, what does he mean? Like, I hate singing. Why am I supposed to sing?
Yeah.
But then when I found cold showers and I found running, those things that I hate but they benefit me. So I think you have to find again, it goes back to our previous episode, how to build resilience and overcome challenges is all about finding those little things that you hate doing. And I think this is your obstacle, just to attack the day with these things in place that you hate the most, but you're still doing them because you just simply hate them. And again, being fearful of stuff and still doing it. So for me, it was many things. It was talking to girls was one of them. It was fighting, obviously, was another thing that was just. I'm not saying I'm not afraid fighting now, but I definitely manage it a lot better than I used to.
I mean, yeah, like I always try and use the analogy that it's far harder to find an alternative route around an obstacle than it is just going through it.
Yeah.
Because I think if you picture it like a maze, like pushing through that wall will get you closer to where you want to go.
Yeah.
But finding a way around it, if there is one or if any, is far longer.
Lost.
You're going to get lost, and like you'll end up having to go through it anyway.
Absolutely.
And I think that you can't, like, a problem that you're trying to avoid isn't, like, in my experience, worth it.
It's just going to compound in the future, and
That's what it is.
It's just gonna hit you so much that you're just going to crumble. I mean, that was I mean, it goes back to fighting. I was so afraid to do the fighting. Well, I still wanted to do, but like I was like, I don't know, like what should I do? And I know it started to build up in me in my head so much that I was like, I have to do it because I'm just going to regret it for the rest of my life that I'm not doing it because I'm just being a pussy. So yeah, you have to. The obstacle, the way. For me, is just do the thing that you are most afraid of, or the thing that you hate the most. That's it. That's how you.
Doing the thing you hate the most.
That's it. That's how you have to say it.
Practicing a negative visualization. What does that mean for you, Law 4?
That's probably one of my favorite laws.
Ooh.
In this one. Although I really love focus on what you can control, but practice a negative visualization is one of those things that, when I found out about that law first, it probably was 2 or 3 years ago when I started reading more about Stoicism. And that was Ryan Holiday who spoke about that law, you could say, a lesson, a practice on his videos. And so what he said is basically imagine yourself having a cancer or having been in a car accident, or just imagine yourself, being in a tough spot, and then realize that you're not, and how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
And I think that's when I started to feel a lot more grateful for what I have. I never used to be grateful for my health. Like I knew that I'm healthy, but I never really used to feel it. I'm just like, oh, I'm healthy, and it's just fine. But I always wanted to have, but I don't have this. Like I'm healthy, but I don't have this. But then as soon as I started to practice that negative visualization, I realized that, damn, it could be a lot worse than it is right now. Or a great example, if I'm walking on the street and I see a disabled person or someone with cerebral paralysis, that was it?
Yeah.
That's what I say it. I just feel really touched when I see these people.
I think we always, like, even if you take it back to a common cold, it's like we realise we haven't got our health until it's taken away from us.
Paralysis, that's how we say
paralysis.
Paralysis.
And I remember my granddad always used to say with every problem I used to have, he was like, well, at least you got your health.
That's it. And you don't really appreciate that.
And I was like, yeah, I know I got my health. Like, yeah, don't give me that. Like, it's but he was like, no, at least you got your health. And I was, whenever I'm sick, I'm like, oh, fuck, man, I really don't want to be ill. Like, this is so annoying. But then I'm like, actually, I realized when I don't have my health, I get really frustrated.
Yeah.
But then we all take that for granted. Take the fact that we can walk for granted. Like, but I think if you practice things that are taken away from you, like the basics, it helps you cultivate a more positive gratitude practice for what you do have. And I think it then kind of helps with lowering the expectation. Like if you looked at life hundreds of years ago, or I don't know, you took someone from 100 years ago to now, you'd see like all of these technological advancements, these medical advancements, these scientific breakthroughs. You'd be like, that person walking into this life would be like, oh my God, like I've never seen anything like this. But then we just think that's the baseline.
Yeah,
now.
That's the baseline.
And when if I was to go forward 50 years or 100 years and I was like looking at, look what but they'd be like, well, this is the baseline.
Bro, imagine having your teeth fixed 50 years ago.
Yeah, or like even.
Oh my God.
Like,
I can't even imagine.
It's mental. Just basic things like
50 years ago. It's not that long ago. That's the problem. It's just, I believe we just live in such a, just in the best possible.
For sure, like the time right now is always the best time.
Yeah.
And I
Best
think
time, yeah.
what that does is it cultivates a gratitude. And I
Yeah.
think when you're grateful, it allows you to have a better expectation in terms of like, we lower it, therefore we're inherently happier.
Yeah.
I think if you're always living in a life where it's never good enough, you're not really appreciative of what you have right now, then it's like you're never in a happy spot. Like you could be, like you could have all of this material wealth, but still be unhappy by true definition because you want everything else or something else.
You remember you mentioned that you were because you used to do chefing on Millionaire
Not
Yachts,
chef,
right?
yeah. Charlie was more of a chef. I was more of a deckhand.
Yeah, but then you still said that like they have all this money and all this status, but they're still miserable. Have you ever spoken with them?
No, I never spoke with like the guests. It was more kind of, you could see it.
Yeah.
Like they still had the same
What made
problems.
you to think that they are like very miserable?
Like they were like, nothing was ever good enough. You know, you were looking after a guest and they'd be like sat in a sunset on a super yacht in Saint-Tropez on anchor, glistening south of France, the nicest food, but in my opinion was unappreciative,
Well, complaining.
wanted more, complaining, was a bit miserable, arguing. You're like, are you not all just gonna, like, you've all got what everyone wants, isn't this what it, and it's not, because I think life is simpler than that. I think life is about understanding what your values are and, you know, living by a means that isn't cultivated by what you have, but who you are.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, like, you look at all these people, like these musicians that have made it, and they're all, I don't know, you hear some of them that tragically drug overdose and die. Like, if you can see that as an example, clearly it wasn't enough for them, so why would it be enough for you?
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't have their shit in the right place. So I think what you've got to do is like visualize what you have. Like if you were to lose everything that you have right now, anyone that's listening to this, you'd feel even worse.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, at least I've got what I have right now, and I'm not,
That's it.
you know, tragically mining for cobalt with literally no hope.
And trust me, man, it was really, really hard for me to realize that whatever I have is enough. Because you always strive for more, and you always compare yourself to other people, and especially when you have social media, like, yeah, you see all these school friends and like they have this and they have that, and not only school friends, but then just people your age just smashing and social media marketing.
All the time.
And it's just like you start to compare yourself, but then again, like everyone has their own journey, and I think it's very important to realize that wherever you are, you have enough, and if you're healthy, that's really good.
Yeah, it's it's dangerous when you think about I mean, everyone knows now that social media isn't great for your mental health, in that, like, if you get a like or a share, like, your dopamine spikes, and it's addictive.
Stupid.
It just sounds ridiculous when you think about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
But you know what? Like, what's crazy? I'm saying, like, it's stupid, but I
do it.
catch I catch myself all the
doing it.
time.
I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fucking
Yeah.
50
Like,
likes.
I
big
share a
shit.
story. It's like, who liked the story? And it's like, why are you doing?
Who's
this,
looking at
mate?
my
Like,
shit?
It's just fucking.
Yeah, of course you do. Like, because everyone does it,
Yeah.
and like it's
Not trying to pretend any saint or like.
no,
yeah,
for sure not. Like,
I'm the same human.
and when we live in a world where that's the norm,
That's it.
you start to buy into it. And I suppose the idea behind what we're saying is like reminding yourself that that's not the be all end all of what makes you happy. And
That's it.
yeah,
Yep. That was your law, remember? So I want you to answer. So, law number 5: living in accordance with nature. What does it mean, living in accordance with nature, for you, Rupert?
that we are living within the natural order of the universe. I think it involves embracing change, because I think the only constant in the universe is change. And I think that everything that's in accordance with nature is change. And I think we need to live more in harmony from an ethical point of view and a sustainable point of view. In that when we're living more in accordance with nature, we're actually living more in accordance with who we are as human beings from a stripped down biological versions of the creatures in which we are.
Was that a shroom experience you had recently?
Not only that, like from my diving deep into that realm, but I think it's also more we're a living being, and that everything that around us is a living being. I think it's really hard to see that when you're living in a city like London.
Yeah.
Because everything's built up,
Yeah.
and it's big, and it's massive, and it's fucking
fast,
loud, and there's sirens and tubes and buildings, and it's so away from like peace and sunshine and rain and cloud, like, and everything that is our natural environment.
Yeah, I was talking with my girlfriend yesterday, and I was like, imagine how crazy it is that we wake up in the morning, and well, me for example, I work in an office and I like my job. It's a cool job, I really do. But I'm just thinking how crazy it is that we wake up, we go to some place, we sit down, we just literally work for like 8 hours, go back home on the tube, done, evening, eat, sleep, and then we do it all over again. Like, well, I mean, in the evening you go gym and
like you're doing all of that, and you're
doing that,
and you're like hurling through space on a rock into nothing.
Yeah.
But what I mean by living in accordance with nature is living more in accordance with the environment which we need to become more intertwined with. I feel we're a race and a culture that is disconnected from an environment across the board. And I feel...
Shout out to Graham Hancock.
Yeah, and I feel we are not... I think there can be too much of everything, and even if I go back home in Oxford where there's a bit more greenery, a bit more countryside, I feel less stressed. I feel the energy. I feel 100%. Things feel different for me. And don't get me wrong, I love living in a city. I love the hustle and bustle. I think it's amazing. I think there's a diversity of culture and food and just everything that makes this place great, and I love it. But at the same time, I can't help but wanting to get away from it as well, because it's a lot of energy in one place that can be too much and not feel very like spiritually kind of helping myself. I'm with you 100%. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like I'm not kind of even just putting your feet on the ground, like barefoot on the earth. There's you have like a static charge within the human, and just by doing that grounds you into the earth, and that can release that charge within your body. And there's just, that's so important. And when you're kind of walking around in rubber shoes and you're not even connected to the earth, like you just don't feel connected. And as creatures, we need to have that connection with nature. And like that's not saying it from like a hippie point of view of like, oh, you need to go roll around in the grass.
No, 100%, man.
It's more, it's being like listening to, like when you listen to the chirping of a bird in the morning, like everyone has some connection with that.
Yeah.
Where it kind of decreases your stress.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember I was, I think it was a year ago or a couple of years ago, I went to Norwich to visit my mate, and we did some shrooms in this forest. And mate, I'm not gonna lie, it felt like everything was just one. But we were walking in that forest to us, but like we can see that the whole forest ecosystem just works as one.
Yeah.
And it just felt beautiful, man. It was. I think that's why we are so disengaged from the nature, because as you said, we live in those
Well, we're not
big buildings.
we're not
and-
taught to engage with it. We're
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
We're sometimes taught that it's scary in that, like, it's this dangerous place to kind of interact with. You're not, like, in school, I was never taught about engaging more with the surroundings of nature.
Yeah.
And it's quite hard in the UK. Like, we don't have these big adventurous landscapes as you would do in other parts of the world, like America or Canada or South America, where you've got like huge rainforests and in the UK it's more like kind of and also bits of Europe as well. But I do love the fact that we are an island here, because I think there is this connectedness with the ocean and being that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I still think you can have these positive interactions with nature around you, in reminding you that this is your environment and we are a smaller cog in a wider breathing planet.
Yeah, they're always saying that northern people are a bit more chill than the rest.
100%.
Yeah, and but when you see, they look, I would like, they have a lot more nature where they live. Like, if you would go up, like, if you talk about Scotland, they have fields of just vast wilderness.
Yeah, like you can drive 2 hours out of London.
Yeah.
And like, we did an event 2 hours away. It was like by the sea, Bournemouth.
Love.
And just, you go to I was just going to Tesco's or something, just like picking up some, like,
People are different there.
yeah, people are like, oh, hi, how are you? How's your day?
Yeah.
And like, you just think, damn, you don't get this here. And I think,
We
is
miss
that
that,
because
yeah.
people are just slower?
Yeah.
People maybe taking things a bit more chill. They're by the sea. It's not so intense. And you can see that people just take time with things. It's not this rush.
We did. My friend and I, we did this Norfolk coast path. If anyone doesn't know, there's a path from near Great Yarmouth to all the way by the coast. You can walk for like 140 kilometers. It's like 4-day trek. But we did my friend did the whole thing at one point, and a couple months ago, just literally that was the last hot weekend. We decided to go for a night camping, and we just walked for like 30-40 kilometers. And during that coast path, you walk across little villages, little towns.
Yeah.
And people in those towns are just the friendliest. I think I always loved English culture, but like, when you go into these towns, you see the real English culture. They just old men sitting in a pub talking. It's just beautiful. Like, he's just so chill, and everyone is so nice. And yeah, I think because they live literally by the sea, they just, as you say, living in accordance with nature.
Yeah. Which brings us to the next law.
Law 6.
Approach life as a banquet.
Banquet, yeah. I actually found this one in Discourses of Epictetus. And it really resonated with me, because so what he said, basically, when you're in a banquet, you're sitting down, you're waiting for your turn to get some food and put in your plate, and you don't really take all the food because you want to leave some food for other people for them to take it into their plate. And he said, Epictetus said that approach your life as a banquet. So that means being patient, waiting for your turn, and when your turn comes, just take a little bit and leave for the rest of the people. And that resonated with me so much, because we all of us in life, we want stuff to come quick to us. We want this big mansion right now. We want this big promotion right now. We want this huge family right now. We want everything right now. But then we miss to realize that that's not how real life works. It's just actually waiting, being patient, and when the opportunity arises, take as much as you can and just let it go, and then wait for another opportunity to come down, and just work with what you have in your plate.
There was this quote that I saw, this is like years ago, and it was, live simply so others can simply live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's always that sort of being courteous of others around you, in that taking what's necessary, but also remembering that, like you say, approaching life with this need for helping yourself but helping others.
Mm-hmm.
And I always do this thing where, like, if I'm like at a dinner table or something, I'll try not to speak or overspeak, or try and let others say, because not only do I want to listen, but I don't need to get my point across all the time.
That's it.
And I try and live my life like that, where I'm like, I take a bit more of a stand back approach. Not to the point where I'll lose out on things, but more that I don't need to prove anything. And that, I approach it as like, take a bit. I don't need the whole thing. I take with it from what I will. And I think with that comes this sense of humbleness. And like I can see the attraction where it's like, no, you got to fight for what you want. You got to take everything.
Yeah.
And, take nothing, leave whatever. Like, but I do feel we can be a bit nicer.
Absolutely. It's just a little law that I found.
I like it.
Incredibly interesting when I read it. It really made me think, and I thought I'm gonna put this here. And we will come to our last law number 7. You become who you give your attention to. I think it pretty tells what does it mean.
100%.
But what does it mean to you, Rupert?
For me, if you spend all of your time on people around you, or you are who you surround yourself with, but also it's if you're over consuming content that's stupid or bullshit, you become the stupid bullshit.
Absolutely.
So I try and actively avoid that, because I don't want to become that. I don't want to feed into that. I don't want to become that person that comments the shitty comments. I have no interest in doing that, because I don't want to become a part of the. I don't want to become a part of the bullshit. I don't want to be that person that gives my attention to that, because then I become that person. It's like when you look at negative news stories all the time. Yeah. You become the negative fear, scared person that can't even go out the front door because they're just so scared of everything, because they just watch everything through the news that's trying to scare you, because it's trying to get more views.
When I realized that, I remember when COVID hit, that first week, everyone was watching news. The whole world was on news. And for the first 2 weeks, I was watching it as well, and I'm not the guy who's watching news. Like, I don't have any news apps. I don't have a TV at home. I don't watch any of that shit. But for that time, I remember I was watching it because everyone was watching it. And it was a new thing, like pandemic, and there's this massive anxiety and God knows whatever it is, what emotion everyone feels. And I was watching it, and then I realized I became so bitter and angry and just negative about everything. And then I looked at myself from a third perspective, and I was like, why am I feeling that way? But then I realized that everyone around me at my work, my family, my friends, literally everyone was watching it. So I was like, I'm not gonna watch for a week or two. And then I stopped. And then again, I didn't feel that negativity anymore. But around everyone around me were feeling that way. So I was like, yeah, that's it. Like those news, they just obviously they are made for people to click on negative stuff, because that's just how we react, how we respond to stuff as humans. But then I remember when the war started with Ukraine and Russia. Again, everyone around me, well, mostly my Lithuanian friends were watching it, and they were just super invested into that, and they were watching that stuff, and I was like, you know what, like, it's not like I don't care about them, but I'm not going to feed that information, because first off, I can't really help them. The only thing I can do is just to send them money. I'm not going to put a helmet and just go to a front line. And what's the point of me watching those news? Like, I can't really help them, so I'm just gonna leave it as it is. And now you have this thing with Hamas in Israel. Like, again, like not I'm feeling sorry for these people. Yeah, it's horrible, but I'm not going to feed that negative information and just watch, because that's just doesn't do any good to me.
Couldn't agree more. And it's never a good time. My friend was like, I can't believe you're running a business in a cost of living crisis and a recession. I can't believe you've done that. And I was like, well, there's always a recession. There's always a bad time to start a business. Like, just do it. There's never a good time to do anything. Like, if you want to do a business, do it. Don't be scared into it. And yeah, my mum watches the news a lot, and I always say, like, don't do it. But I remember I was trying to be like an adult, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to start watching the news, because that's what, I don't know, I just thought that's what adults did. And I put it on my phone, and I would get these notifications, like these terrifying notifications being like stabbing and whatever, or a terrorist attack here or thing. And I remember I was in bed once, and it was like 10 o'clock, and it was like and I was like, Jesus Christ. I looked at my phone, and it was like, this person's dead or something, and I was like, I don't want this on my phone. And I took the app off, but my dad is religious to watch the news. Watching it,
It's very addictive, man.
Clued in, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock news. Right, I'm watching the news. It's like, I don't want to watch that shit. But what it does is it's no different than someone trying to create clickbait content. And I think we know that now, because more people are refraining away from the news and looking online, but it still applies online.
Yeah. Well, look at the social media now. Like, when Elon Musk bought Twitter and made X, he sacked 80% of people, because majority of these people were basically employed to just expand propaganda. So that basically their job was to do that. So imagine all the other social media networks. And I'm not praising Elon Musk. I mean, I like the guy, but I guess like everyone, he has sins to do. And I'm not here to just say, oh, he's the best, he did the best thing. But then when you look at other social media platforms, you just realize that it's not only the news, it's also the social media platforms that are
for sure
invested into that.
And I think going back to, you become what you give your attention to, it's also trying to have a wider perspective of everything.
Absolutely.
So instead of looking at the story, it's looking at it from all angles, whether that be the news or something that you see online. Don't buy into one person's narrative or one perspective.
Yeah.
Have an understanding of it all. Because if you give your attention to that one thing, you become that as your belief. Like, I think it's really important to have an understanding of everything. Like, COVID was one of those things where I didn't just want one opinion. I wanted all of it.
Yeah.
And then it gave me an understanding. Okay, well, if I understand the story of both sides, getting vaxxed, getting not vaccinated, then I can make my own choices.
That's it.
And make my own like have my own perspective on things. And I think that's what it is if you give yourself more time to be able to choose what you want to give attention to by understanding all of it, it allows you to make better decisions on what you want to listen to. My personal opinion.
Back to secret question.
Secret question.
So last time I think I asked you first. Or you asked me first.
I can ask you first.
You ask me first if you don't mind.
If you could live by only one law, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one, mate. That's a really good one. Damn. Oh, let me look through them again. I probably know, but let me just. Okay, so what we covered was focus on what you can control. Practice that was you suffer more in imagination than in reality.
Yeah.
The obstacle is the way. Practice a negative visualization. Living in accordance with nature. Approach life as a banquet. You become who you give your attention to. One.
Can only choose one.
I'd probably choose number one. Focus on what you can control. I feel that it's just universal, because in that one, I think all of the other laws just
Fit into place.
fit into place. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, probably 100% focus on what you can control.
Nice.
That would be my law. But that was a good question. Jam. Didn't expect that. How does Stoicism and spirituality, or religion, if you're religious, matches in your life, and why?
How does Stoicism match in my life and why?
The spirituality or religion. I guess religion is spirituality.
So how does Stoicism or spirituality match in my life?
Yeah, how does, what are the similarities do you see between those two?
Between Stoicism and my own personal spirituality.
And your own personal life, yeah.
I think it allows me to understand that there's more to life than just the human perspective, because it allows you to think wider than just your human narrative, if that makes sense. Because I think that there's more to it than just a physical self.
Yeah.
And I think Stoicism allows you to have a wider perspective that's outside of the human experience. Like if we look at it as like you are what you can control, like, or even going to the four virtues, it's knowing that life is bigger than you are. And when you know that, then it doesn't make things feel so overwhelming. For me.
Interesting.
Because I think that if we live in this place of this is it, it starts to get real overwhelming. But actually, everyone has the same problems as you are. We're all living in this world. We're all trying to figure it out. The world is massive. The universe is even bigger. God, spirituality, like whatever you call it. Like a higher purpose, a higher divine.
Yeah,
helps you live in accordance with that for me.
Stoicism is definitely
it provides universal guidance.
Yeah, it's almost like a religious book, but it's not religious. If you know what I mean that it's always less like it's also lessons included in that, and it's very philosophical in a spiritual way.
Like I think it helps individuals navigate complexities of daily life.
100%, yeah.
And it fosters personal growth, resilience, and helps with inner peace. And I think once that you have this ability to do that, you then can start looking outwards by helping others and your tribe and looking upwards. I think when you've got a hold on that, which is what Stoicism helps you, it gives you this enlightenment that there's more to it than just this constant grind.
Yeah.
And I think the rules, Stoicism helps you navigate. It's like a map. It's charting an ocean that you don't know where rocks are or islands are. It's a map that helps you navigate to get there. I don't think it's this thing that gives you all the answers. It's not what it's about. I think it's just supposed to give you key principles in order to help you understand who you are and how to navigate struggles.
Just take you on the right trajectory again.
Yeah.